Okay. Celebrating National Electricity Day, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources built 3 public electricity battery exchange stations. Third quarter of 2020, Wijaya Karya's revenue declined for more than 40%. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Claranta Wijaya, and this is Market Headlines. In order to commemorate National Electricity Day, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources picks 3 locations to be public electricity battery exchange stations. This is a way to boost electricity vehicle ecosystem that is in line with the President Regulations number 55 of 2019. And good news for the electric vehicle enthusiast. Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources just launched 3 spots to become a public electricity battery exchange stations. Those public electricity battery exchange stations are located in Jakarta and Tangerang City. One in Alfamart Gandaria 3 South Jakarta, one in Directorate General of Electricity's office in Kuningan, South Jakarta, and PLN office in Tangerang. The mechanism is quite simple. Riders just need to exchange the old battery for a new one. It takes only 3 minutes. For the time being, the battery swap is only for electric motorbikes.
Pengendara kendaraan bermotor atau dalam hal ini sepeda motor listrik dapat menukar baterai yang lama dengan baterai yang sudah terisi dari rak penyimpanan dan hanya membutuhkan waktu penukaran sekitar 3 menit. Saat ini telah tersedia 9 titik lokasi SPBKLU dengan rincian 6 unit di kota Jakarta Selatan, 1 unit di kota Tangerang, dan 2 unit di kota
Bureau of Statistics mentions that the recession is inevitable, whereas the economic development in the quarter is expected to be contracted deeply, mainly due to weak domestic consumption. Based on Statistics Indonesia data, as many as 40% of middle to low income people recorded weakening consumption. There are many factors, from lower income being furloughed, even layoffs. Therefore, Suharyanto, as head of Statistics Indonesia, or so-called as BPS, mentioned that the third quarter may suffer heavy contraction. This is in line with President Joko Widodo's latest predictions.
Banyak yang dirumahkan dan mengalami penurunan upah, sehingga daya beli di lapisan bawah memang menunjukkan penurunan, tetapi menengah ke atas sebetulnya mereka lebih menahan.
Middle to high-income people's new behavior is also detected by Statistics Indonesia, whereas middle to high-income people tend to hold consumptions rather than spend it. Therefore, consumptions that is claimed can save Indonesia from recessions will likely be helpless in the third quarter. From Jakarta, Rika Anwardi for IDX Channel. We can call that the second quarter economy is somehow disaster for investment climate. But however, Investment Coordinating Board, or so-called as BKPM, recorded that Indonesia's investment realizations in the third quarter of 2020 increased slightly by 1.6%. Investment realizations in the third quarter of 2020 increased slightly by 1.6% to reach 209 trillion rupiah, from previously 205.7 trillion rupiah during the corresponding period of 2019. BKPM head Balil Lahadalia stated that the growth in investment realizations indicated that the country has passed through its critical period in the third quarter of 2020.
penanaman modal dalam negerinya 106,1 triliun atau 50,8%. Sementara PMA-nya 102,9 triliun atau 49,2%. Nah, ini juga menarik bahwa pertumbuhan realisasi PMA-nya udah mulai peningkatan yang baik sekalipun belum terlalu maksimal. Dan ini berimbang, hampir berimbang dengan PMDN-nya.
Five main sectors of the investment during the period are transportations, warehouses and telecommunications, basic metal, metal and non-machinery industry, electricity, gas and water, constructions, housing, industrial and offices. From Jakarta, Rizka Ayu for IDX Channel. Financial Services Authority or OJK predicted capital market fundraising this year will reach 100 trillion rupiah. Financial Services Authority is realistic enough to set out capital market raising fund target by this year. From the target of 160 trillion rupiah, the authority estimates that this year it can only reach around 100 trillion rupiah. The OJK Capital Market Executive Head, Hussein, said that the pandemic situation has made this year's target difficult to achieve.
Jadi ya harus membangun optimisme untuk yang 2021. Menurut saya kita akan kembali ke mendekati angka yang di tahun 2019, yaitu sekitar 130 sampai ke 160 triliun. Harapannya kenapa rasionalitasnya tentunya dengan perbaikan ekonomi dan terutama di sektor real.
With next year economic growth expectations, Financial Services Authority believes that the real sector can grow better, so that in 2021, the expansions in the real sector is stable enough to attract the interest in raising fund in the capital market. Jakarta, Rahayu Pakmo for IDX Channel. Mark Henlas will be right back with the news coverage regarding U.S. presidential elections. Stay tuned. Saat ini lebih mudah untuk mendapatkan informasi mengenai perkembangan ekonomi dan bisnis di Indonesia dengan aplikasi IDX Channel. Mulai dari berita, makro dan mikroekonomi, politik hingga hiburan. Anda juga dapat berbagi artikel, foto, dan video ke semua platform media sosial yang Anda miliki. Beragam informasi hari ini bisa di-download di dalam aplikasi idxchannel.com. IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business, and Capital Market Channel.
Pergerakan indeks harga saham gabungan sepanjang perdagangan hari ini tertekan, level 5 ribuan kembali ditinggalkan. Bagaimana analisis Anda?
Masih ada peluang turun lebih lanjut. Kalau misalkan regionalnya memerah, nah maka tidak tentu kemungkinan kita juga akan ketularan kan.
Dan beberapa perbankan yang diduga melakukan transaksi mencurigakan dan semoga bisa menjadi salah satu referensi untuk Anda dan seperti apa ke depannya.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. Diplomats and foreign policy experts say that Indonesia must continue to closely engage with the United States regardless who wins the 2020 U.S. presidential election.
Diplomats and foreign policy experts say that Indonesia must continue to closely engage the United States regardless of who wins the U.S. presidential elections, as it seeks to rekindle its partnership with a superpower largely preoccupied with its rivalry with China. With the race to the White House picking up speed, Indonesia must decide on how to best anticipate two possible scenarios, preparing for a change in U.S. leadership or bracing for more of the same. Americans are expected to head to the polls on November 3rd to vote in President Donald Trump for a second term or to let former Vice President Joe Biden steer the U.S. into a different direction. Either way, experts agree that the result of the election would affect Indonesia's foreign policy stance vis-a-vis the U.S., as well as Washington's relations in the Asia-Pacific in general. On the one hand, former Indonesian ambassador to the U.S., Dino Patijala, was especially confident that Trump would lose on account of unanticipated job losses and other challenges wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Throughout history, U.S. voters are known for being punitive toward leaders who govern when the state is in distress. He added that Indonesia must start figuring out a partnership strategy beyond trade and investment to anticipate inevitable changes post-election, especially if candidate Biden outvotes Trump. From all sources for IDX Channel.
And yes, viewers, Americans are scheduled to vote for presidential elections on November 3rd, 2020. But as all eyes are watching the waiting result, let's take a look on the latest data regarding U.S. economy in the first graphic. Here it is through your screen. We can see the U.S. GDP growth rate. In 2019, the first quarter is on 2.9%, while in the second quarter is in 1.5%, and it's still on the stable level until the fourth quarter of 2019 in 2.4%. But however, it plunged deeply in the first quarter of 2020 to be minus 5%, and the second quarter minus 31.4%. This is the iconic moment of America. And however, it bounced back again in the third quarter of 2020 to be 33.1%. So in short, from the graphic, in 2019, everything seemed normal, while in 2020, it was quite a disaster. The U.S. economy has suffered a brutal blow from the COVID-19, forcing businesses worldwide to close their door, and damage is apparent in leading economic benchmarks. And the U.S. economy under Trump actually continued to improve following the gains made during the 8-year presidency of Barack Obama, but conditions changed sharply once the coronavirus shuttered much on the U.S. economy in March. So we can call it as a nightmare. Unemployment jumped for 14.7% in April. However, jobs picture has improved as businesses are opened, but still the rate is falling to 7.9% in September, although hiring has begun to slow in recent months. And yes, we must wait the real GDP growth in full year 2020 to have a better view in judging the U.S. economy. So viewers, regarding the latest data of the U.S. economy rebound, how the two president candidates responded to the data, the answer is in the next graphic. Well, through your screen, we can see the responses in here. So we can see the Trump responses. We can see that the Trump response really in a bright mood. A GDP number is just announced. Biggest and the best in the history of our country, not even close. Next year will be a fantastic. We can see the good vibes in here through the Trump's tweet. And how about Joe Biden? GDP rose last quarter, but visits to food banks haven't slowed and poverty has grown. We can see the Biden statements is more to like the gray statement in here. And the GDP release came just 5 days before Elections Day, which culminates a heated battle between President Donald Trump and his Democratic challenger, former Vice President Joe Biden. Trump has promised a return to strong growth prior to the pandemic, while Biden has accused the Republican incumbent for taking a thriving economy into a ditch due to the mismanagement of the virus itself. And what the president left out, of course, is that the economy contracted by a record of 31.4% annual pace in the second quarter as the pandemic hit the country. And even after the third quarter bounced back, the economy is still at 3.5% smaller now than it was at the end of 2019. As the two candidates have many different perspectives on the economy, how about the perspective on the economy? How about their policy plans if they have been elected? So let's see the part of the plan through the next graphic. Here it is through your screen. The part of Biden and Trump's policy plan. Here it is. We can highlight the taxations. Trump extending the provisions of the individual income and wealth, which are included in the 2007 withholding tax and the employment rate. And the second, reduce income tax, reduce capital gain tax rate, and offer tax credit to companies bringing the jobs back to U.S. While Biden in here, we can see Biden will increase individual tax to 39.6% from previously 37%. And that increased of the corporate income tax rate from 21 to 28% and determine tax on the long-term capital gains and dividends, and also provides a tax credit for small businesses. But here it is, I'd like to highlight Trump's policy on the taxations. A centerpiece of Trump's presidency was the U.S. tax cuts package enacted in the late 2017, which trimmed the tax rate on the corporate profits to 21% from 35% and lowered taxes for the wealthiest individual. The tax overhaul, which has the biggest change in the 30 years, helped boost the economic growth in 2018, but also ballooned the deficit, which surged to more than $1 trillion in 2019. And the turmoil from the coronavirus resulting the outlay of the massive new federal spending and has further exploded the country's deficit above the $3 trillion, a new record by a wide margin. And for Biden, we must wait the elections result first, and then we will know his policy plans will be executed or no. Okay, enough for the candidates. Let's move on to Indonesia's U.S. trade and investment relationship. The data is on the next graphic. Here it is. You can see U.S.-Indonesia trade and investment relationship export to U.S. from the period of January to September 2020. Reached $13.51 billion, which is, it's really big, 12.14% of the total Indonesia's export. While for the U.S. investment to Indonesia, it was $480 million. And even better, Indonesia just got extensions of a preferential trade facility, which is GSP. And this provides Indonesia's export with a lower tariff and boosts the export in result. And diplomats and foreign policy experts say that Indonesia must continue to closely engage with the United States regardless of who wins the U.S. presidential elections. At the same time, Indonesia must decide on how to best anticipate two possible scenarios: preparing for a change in U.S. leadership or bracing for more of the same. Either way, experts say that the result of the elections would affect Indonesia's foreign policy stance vis-a-vis with the U.S. as well as Washington's relations with the Asia-Pacific in general. And while former Indonesian ambassador to U.S., it said that Indonesia must start figuring out a partnership strategy beyond trade and investment to anticipate inevitable changes of past elections. And yes, viewers, whoever wins the elections, we hope that Indonesia-U.S. relationship, especially in the trade investment, will become better and mutual for both countries. And market headlines will be right back after this quick break.
IDX Channel, the Indonesia Stock Exchange channel, is the authorized capital market channel in Indonesia. To give references to global investors, IDX Channel also presented the news about the dynamic of Indonesia's economy, business, and capital market in English. IDX Channel also have different types of programs. They are Special Dialogue, Market Opening, Market Review, IDX First Session Closing, IDX Second Session Closing, Market Headlines, and News Screen. IDX Channel is aired 24 hours a day with 5 hours live program from Indonesia Stock Exchange trading floor. Our vision and mission as the only capital market TV channel in Indonesia that is committed to improve the capital market knowledge in the country. News that had been delivered on IDX Channel can also be seen on our digital platforms, so you can give yourself an update about informations anywhere and everywhere. IDX Channel can be watched through Vision Channel, First Media Channel, IndiHome Channel, and Vision Plus, and also live streaming on idxchannel.com. IDX Channel provides information from around the world from different perspectives. We provide you various investment strategies, stock options, inspiring figures for your business references. IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business, and capital market channel.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. So let's take a look at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement today. Earlier today, JCI was opened at level of 5,138.72. And then approaching the closing time of the first session, the index was on the level of 5,149.96. And then the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session's closing time. The index was closed at a level of 5,159.45. And in short, JCI went up 0.87%. And next, we are going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got Miss Industrial as the leader of the strengthening trend that went up 1.79%. We got manufacturer that went up 1.11%, and consumer goods that went up 1.11%, and mining that went up 0.86%. And moving on to the top gainers and today's key highlights. Here it is. BBCA went up 1.2%. DKFT went up 5.41%. SRRR that went up 11.88%, and UNCR that went up 2.2%. I mean, some of the top losers for today's trading. We got SMGR that went down 2.19%. We got BRIS that went down 2.48%. We got INCO that went down 0.94%, and KLBF that went down 1.34%. And next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards the US dollar. So rupiah opened at a level of 14,609. Rupiah was also showing strengthening trend towards US dollar. I was closed at a level of 14,538. In summary, rupiah went up 0.89%. As revenue declined for more than 40%, Wijaya Karya only recorded 50.19 billion net profit in the third quarter of 2020, or fell almost 100% from the realizations of the previous year.
In the third quarter of 2020, construction company Wijaya Karya was only able to record 50.19 billion rupiah as net profit, or fell sharply by 96% from the same period in the previous year. The main contributor can be seen from the revenue, which declined by 43% year-on-year. Despite weak performance, President Director of Wijaya Karya Agung Budi said that the company's performance reflects company's capability to continue its operational and projects amid COVID-19 pandemic, and in the same time, he believes that the company will soon revive. Meantime, by September 2020, the company has obtained 6.84 trillion rupiah new contracts, are still far away from the target at 21 trillion rupiah this year. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Moving on to the next coverage, Bank Negara Indonesia posted lower net profit in the third quarter of 2020. The bank's profit fell more than 60% year on year.
Bank Negara Indonesia posted lower net profit in the third quarter of 2020. The state-owned bank only succeeded to obtain 11.97 trillion rupiah net profit in the end of September 2020, or fell by 63.9% year-on-year. The lower net profit was contributed by slower net interest income. Nevertheless, the bank's non-interest income was still able to post positive growth by 7.2% year-on-year. Meantime, the bank's non-performing loan or NPL in the third quarter rose to 3.6% from previous 1.8%. While loan at risk for restructured loan due to COVID-19 pandemic hiked to the level of 28.7%. For information, until the end of the third quarter, loan distribution grew by 4.2% year-on-year to 582.38 trillion rupiah. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
The COVID-19 task force with the Ministry of Health launched tracing strengthening program in COVID-19 handling. This program implementations aims to trace contacts in 51 cities and regencies in 10 priority provinces.
The COVID-19 task force with Ministry of Health launched tracing strengthening program in COVID-19 handling. This program implementation aims to trace contacts in 51 cities and regencies in 10 priority provinces such as Jakarta, West Java, Central Java, East Java, Bali, and Papua. In applying contacts tracing, monitoring and supervision is needed where tracing is conducted from the smallest units. COVID-19 Task Force Head of Health Department, Alexander Ginting, said that the program needs more tracers personnel to conduct simple epidemiology analysis in regencies and cities, while 1,612 health centers is targeted to have more than 8,000 tracers. By applying tracing program, it is expected that regions can detect more than 80% close contacts of confirmed COVID-19 cases in 72 hours, and also overseeing the close contacts until 14 days after have been exposed with infected patients. From Jakarta, Ade Firmansyah for IDX Channel.
As coronavirus pandemic takes a big role on current economic situations, here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business, and capital market channel. And before saying goodbye, I would like to remind you on what Mom said. Please do comply with the health protocol by using mask, physical distancing, and avoiding crowd. Also washing your hand often with soap through overflowing water. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.